Sten, we're live.
Hey, thanks, Larry the Liberty Guy. And we're going to make history today with Larry the Liberty Guy. He's not just going to be a behind-the-scenes producer today. Larry the Liberty Guy, Gillheeney, will be a guest on our show for a great article he wrote about drag queen story hours. He'll be our guest coming up along with Tyler Rowley in about 15, 20 minutes. By the way, apologies for yesterday and anything that might happen today. We had a brownout during our broadcast. The broadcast yesterday was interrupted. We know a lot of you were tuned in. You were knocked off when our show stopped. And I know a lot of you weren't able, or at least maybe didn't try to get back on. So we apologize for that. It was just a general brownout here in the Cranston area. Affected me here on one end of Cranston, Larry in mid Cranston, and that's where our production came from. So we apologize for that. And we're still suffering from intermittent internet inconsistencies, I guess. I think yesterday was more an electrical brownout. Okay, today on the show, a lot to cover. 3 guests in 2 different segments. I'll have my opening remarks shortly. In my remarks, I'm going to give you another example of Arias for Freedom to This We've Come, how it's so relevant. These words that rebuke communism in the 1940s, so relevant today. Going to give you an update on the TCI gas tax. The first vote is happening today on this legislation. So tomorrow we'll give you an update on that vote, but today we're going to talk about what we're doing about it. Then we're going to get into local updates. First, some commentary to me about an update in South Kingston regarding that bogus union mailer that went to students about a referendum that was soundly defeated, I think it was last month, in South Kingston, not to mention the school committee incompetence in dealing with Nicole Solis, who we had on yesterday. So lots of problems with the school committee, school district in South Kingston. So you have an update for me on that. Then we're going to have Tyler Rowley and Larry the Liberty Guy. Drag Queen Story Hour is coming to West Warwick. We talked about this 2 years ago in Fall River. It's coming to West Warwick. We'll see if a rally or a meeting Monday night will change any of that. And we'll conclude today's show with an interview with our repeat guest from the Barrington United Veterans about just ongoing, continual Barrington flag controversies at the Veterans Memorial that's being over-politicized and continually politicized in Barrington. Tomorrow, Dr. Andrew Boston, a lot to talk about with COVID. Again, the fear mongers will not give up. They can't stand it that the numbers are down, that people are living their normal lives again. And they're just, I mean, today's headline in the Providence Journal, we'll talk about it tomorrow, just trying to create the fear again, trying to spread the fear. Just unbelievable how these leftist big government types work. Okay, let's get into some batting practice, and I'll go back to the trusty Harvard Crimson baseball cap today for In the Dugout. All right, couple weeks ago, we released the aria for Freedom to This We've Come. I'm going to play about 30 seconds of it. And as you can see, you can get to it yourself if you haven't listened to it yet. It's on the Ocean State Current. You just click this tab here, Arias for Freedom. It will bring you to this page. I'm going to play about 30 seconds of it, and then I'll explain why. I want to go back to this "that he be hunted" part. And I'm going to explain that right now, because this is exactly what's going on now. So let me do a little digression, and then, like Jen Psaki, if you'll allow me, I'll circle back, explain and tie everything together. But first, you know what's going on the international stage today with President Biden meeting President Putin. And this was just a great cartoon of the day I thought was great. The question to Putin, why do so many the question, excuse me, why do so many Americans see you as one of the biggest threats to America? And he starts to answer, and the guy goes, no, that was a question for President Biden. So the question is President Biden a threat to America? Well, look at some of these other news stories from three different, non-conservative news outlets, all put together in this blog. Biden calls Trump supporters domestic terrorists. CNN reports Biden to expand surveillance state. And Political reports that the Biden administration, and I heard the president say it himself, is joining with big tech to monitor Facebook and Twitter and other social media posts to try to determine who it is that could be the future insurrectionist, the future domestic terrorist, and who knows what they'll do to stop them. But they're on a witch hunt, folks. They're hunting you, right? Hunting. They're hunting you. If you disagree with the Biden agenda, if you say anything that goes against the woke narrative, if you're an avowed Trump supporter, they're hunting you now. And nobody is being hunted more than just those people who just attended the January 6th rally and protests in Washington, D.C. at our nation's capital. Of course, there were those 700 or 800 who broke the rules and went into the Capitol. It was not an insurrection, folks. They're trying to make it seem like one. They're trying to make this the Reichstag moment in America. You know what the Reichstag moment was? Do you remember that? I was in Germany in the 1930s when Hitler first assumed power. Many people believe that it was Nazi operatives who burned down the Reichstag government building, but they blamed it on the insurrectionists and those opposed to the Nazi Hitler regime, and they used that as an excuse to clamp down on the whole country. The left Democrats are using the January 6th event to clamp down on the whole country, to hunt you, to hunt our fellow Americans, to hunt those who may be political opponents of this administration. Are you kidding me? It is not. We are not exaggerating here. Those words from the aria ring true, written in the 1940s against totalitarian communism and fascism in Italy. It is unbelievable. To this we've come. It is unbelievable to think that to this we've come. And again, if you have not seen and listened to that great aria, go to oceanstatecurrent.com. You will be amazed at how this aria, written 70 years ago, still holds sway today. All right, moving on. Today is also a day when the first official legislative step is going to be voted on to move the controversial and costly and disastrous and harmful Transportation Climate Initiative, or the TCI gas tax bill, through the General Assembly. There was a hearing earlier this month in the Senate. The vote in the Senate Environmental and Agricultural Committee is today. They usually don't schedule a vote unless they're sure it's going to pass. And there's no reason to think that this progressive left climate environmentalist radical carbon tax bill won't pass this committee and won't pass the full Senate. Ultimately, our hopes of defeating it lie in the House, where there's usually more reason, but not always. In fact, not much this year under Leader CRT. Our governor is a lost cause on this. Our governor supports this legislation. At least he said so privately to people that we've had on this show. I don't think he's said so publicly, although he sympathized with the goal of the bill. So really the only chance is in the House. But we're not going to just give up and lay down, even though there's a Senate vote today. So here I'm going to show to you, this is an email I sent to all, I think 8 or 9 members of the Senate Environmental and Agriculture Committee. This is the email that went to Chairwoman Senator Dawn Ewer, if that's the way you say it. The bill is 872. Now, we normally don't lobby. This is lobbying. Asking lawmakers to vote for or against the bill. That's lobbying. Or even asking the public to contact lawmakers to tell them to vote yes or no on a bill. That's grassroots lobbying. Our center as a 501c3 is allowed to do some lobbying. It's pretty much understood if we do spend less than 5% of our time or resources on lobbying, that will be safe. We start spending more than that, we could run into some questions from the IRS. In no way do we spend anywhere close to 5% on lobbying. But this is one issue that we have been talking about, that we have been the leader in this state in raising public awareness about, and trying to organize resistance to try to update and inform lawmakers to. We've written open letters to the governor. We've conducted polling on this. We've conducted multiple research on this. And this is the email we sent out to the senators on that Committee on Environment and Agriculture. I don't really think it's going to do much good. These leftists are pretty committed to their agenda, but we did it nonetheless. And we did get a little momentum with earlier this month. Connecticut lawmakers said no to the TCI gas tax, which leaves only Rhode Island and only Massachusetts as the only 2 states left considering this. If we were to pass this, even if Massachusetts does too, our state will be put at such a massive competitive disadvantage. Just think of the convenience stores along the Connecticut border, where Rhode Island stores are going to be charging maybe up to 38% more per gallon. Do you think that's enough to drive people over the border to buy gas and maybe other convenience items? Damn right it is. It's another self-inflicted wound. And we're guessing that this Senate committee will move us closer to yet another wound tomorrow. So we'll update you on that tomorrow. Another interesting call I had today on a different topic. You know, our center was formed as a research and advocacy organization, Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity. And in the early years, people paid attention to research, not whether from us or anybody else. Now it's all about the narrative. Research-based, fact-based or not, the media drives the narrative. Research be damned, truth be damned. It just doesn't matter anymore, which is why we're doing more of these shows, because the research just doesn't matter to lawmakers up there. They're all beholden to whatever agenda they're beholden to, and they don't care what the reality is. They live in their never pretend land of make-believe, never land. We've set it off on this show, and it just doesn't matter what else. Well, today, some of our work was appreciated by some people, not lawmakers, and I'll explain. So many of you may know that Rhode Island is going to receive over $1 billion, 1.2 to $1.8 billion in total. If you talk about the money for this all supposedly for the COVID, emergency relief funds, right? Under Joe Biden, round two, there was a tranche of money that came under Trump last year. Our center put out a report in April on how that money should be spent and by what guidelines and principles those decisions should be made. That was after consultation with my colleagues in other states and national experts who familiar with the details of the federal guidelines. And as usual, it didn't appear as if too many people were paying attention to that report we put out early April. Well, I got an email a couple of days ago from somebody to invite us to elaborate on our report and to provide some ideas to this committee that's been formed to advise lawmakers and the governor on how to spend this money. Mostly lawmakers, because I think General Assembly approval is going to be required. Last year, there were a lot of funds that the governors, many of whom were operating under emergency powers without General Assembly or legislative engagement. So they gave governors the power to spend last year's money. This year, I think it's going to require General Assembly. So as you may have seen in the paper, the Rhode Island Foundation, along with the Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council, kind of merged together to put together an advisory team to advise the General Assembly on some ideas and do's and don'ts on how to spend all this money. I contacted Neil Steinberg. This is when it was announced they were putting this committee together. And I said, as I look through this committee, I don't see anybody representing a conservative point of view. I see a lot of left-wing advocacy groups on here. I see a lot of traditional insider government union and, whatever else on here, but I don't see anybody representing taxpayers, representing a pro-business, representing a conservative point of view. Can I appoint somebody from our organization to be on the committee? Mr. Steinberg was respectful, but ultimately rigid. No, the committee's already been announced. We can't go changing it now because then everybody else is going to want to be in. So that was their first mistake, is not having anybody, and they never seem to have anybody who represents a conservative point of view on these committees or, these advisory panels or whatever it's going to be. It's very rare we get asked. So I figured that would be the end of it. I did say, well, you might want to look at this report we've sent. And he said, yeah, we did see it. And I don't know whether they looked at it or not. I don't know. Well, I get an email from Mike DeBiase earlier this week. Now, Mike DeBiase, you may know him as the former director of administration for Gina Raimondo. Very curious assignment he took in the first place. He was a very active Republican, conservative. When we first started the center, I remember talking with him. Even considered him a potential donor because he had a high-level position at Fidelity, I believe. He was in charge of government affairs, if I recall. I mean, big paying job. And he left Fidelity to join the Raimondo administration for obviously a far left position and for probably a much lower paying job. So I don't know, but anyway, hey, that's his choice. That's his right. That's his freedom. Mike has now left, with Governor Raimondo departing, Mike has now left and last year became the head of RIPAC, the Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council, replacing John Simmons, who retired. I know John well as well, but I know Mike DeBiase as my high school classmate from Cranston East, the class of 1976 Cranston East Thunderbolts. Mike was a dear friend. Mike married a girl from our class. And like I said, I've stayed in touch with Mike somewhat. So Mike called me and said, listen, this committee has put together a little subcommittee, and our subcommittee is reaching out to people who are not on the larger committee to obtain input. We saw your report and we're wondering if you can give us some more input on that. So I spent a good 45 minutes today on the line with Mike DBAs and some other members of that task team, if you would. And we shared our ideas. And I want to share some of those with you because we put out what I thought was a very, very good report back in April 1st, as a matter of fact. So it wasn't an April Fool's joke. And here it is, how the Ocean State should spend its federal relief funds. So let me just review with you some of the things we advised them. The number one was we gave a lot of background to it, how much, which cities and towns were going to get how much. But ultimately, our number one choice was, who was disadvantaged most by this pandemic, and we believe it was students in education. I'm not sure if I'm sharing the right screen with you, so I'm going to do it again. So we put out a concept last year called Catch-up ESA. So many students, many of whom aren't receiving good education in the first place, are further being disadvantaged through the remote learning, just by nature of the remote distance learning itself. It's not a classroom environment. There's not the supervision that's normally there. And there are a lot of kids we know who don't have good access to the internet or good computers that can access the internet. So we think that every family ought to be awarded with some kind of scholarship. We call it a catch-up ESA, as you can see right here. So parents or guardians can purchase or secure the tutor, the course, the summer program, a computer, whatever it is they feel they need to supplement the loss of educational opportunity that our kids have suffered over the last 15 months. We spent some time talking about this idea, eliminating fees for occupational licensing. Now, before I go further, let me first state one thing here, that I disagreed. Well, first, let me show you. These are the guiding principles that the committee, not with agrees should be the guiding principles. And again, it's all this systematic inequalities, impacted communities. It's all designed to be this politically correct. So I don't agree with these guiding principles. I made it clear to the group. I said, but I am willing to work with you to see if any of our ideas fit within these guiding principles, since that's the marching orders, that's the hand we were dealt, right? I had no choice in that. I didn't have any hand in putting those guiding principles together. So we had a very good conversation, and I want to say first, before I go any further, that I was pleased at what I saw about the process. On the call was somebody from the Economic Progress Institute, which is diametrically opposite to us in our belief system and the policies we advocate for. But that person and Mike DBAs were very respectful to our positions. We had a very good discussion. And I must say that if they took a lot of notes, they said they were going to present some of our ideas to the larger committee. And I hope that the larger committee, which is definitely slanted left, which is definitely slanted big government status quo, I hope they will give as much credence to our ideas as was demonstrated today in the call. So I have a little bit more faith in the process. Ultimately, I fear it's going to be the same old politically correct special interest spending that comes out of there, but we'll see what happens. We talked about immediate expensing of capital expenses so that businesses looking to grow or expand or start can immediately deduct big ticket capital expense items rather than have them depreciate over time. That would help people purchase stuff now. We want to purchase stuff and kickstart the economy now to help kick it up. Rhode Island's got one of the worst recovering economies in the country. I talked about upgrading maybe some of our power grid so we don't go into underground lines, so we don't have as much problems when storms hit. One of the ideas we put out they liked was one-time upgrades to some of the state park and rec areas that are out there. I don't know if some of them are in decrepit condition or not, or some of them are looking for upgrades that they just can't afford in the budget, even though they do bond some of this stuff out. every now and then. They thought it was a very interesting idea to upgrade some of the park areas that all of us can enjoy. I even mentioned, hey, eliminate beach fees for a year and just use the federal money to eliminate beach fees. So those are some of the ideas we put forward in addition to funding, which I think was the most important thing. It's not so much a traditional expenditure, but we also suggested that the money be used to hire what's my word? Inspector general type person or an auditor dedicated to tracking the money and make sure this money is not wasted, is not fraudulently spent, is not overspent on special interest contractors or insider cronies who try to jack up prices so we're not paying, $37 for a screwdriver or something like that. This money, people need to have confidence this money is being spent wisely, and I think an inspector general, a temporary one, now we believe there should be a full-time one in the executive branch, but at least let's have a temporary one for this over $1 billion in spending that's going to be happening in the coming year. So again, I want you as supporters of us to know, if you're a donor, thank you, that our report on how Rhode Island should spend the money was seen. It had an impact, and it's going to be considered. We don't know ultimately what's going to happen. I'm not part of those discussions, but you should be confident that the work we do this year is being noticed and may play into how funds are expended. Now, a lot of those funds are local funds. Maybe I can't remember what percentage of them are local funds, but we're going to pivot now and start talking about localities. Boy, these local governments, they used to be saying local government is the best government. But local governments have turned into nothing. These town councils, these cities council, these school boards have turned into nothing more than extreme political entities. In our state, usually completely on the left. They've become part of the left-wing propaganda machine. They are dominated by left-wing progressives. And some of the policies and programs that are coming out, it's just amazing. So government, the idea that local government is the best government, I'm not sure that's going to be the case anymore. And in Rhode Island, that theory has certainly been put to the test, as you'll see with our upcoming guests. So in summary, you may have noticed that we're spending an awful lot of time looking at local issues, local politics. We had yesterday on the South Kingston mom who was threatened to be sued. We had a Westerly dad concerned about critical race theory. We're going to be talking next segment with Barrington about their flag controversy at the Veterans Memorial. We've had people from Bristol on. And now today we're going to talk about an issue that's arising in West Warwick. So joining us today is Tyler Rowley and Larry the Liberty Guy making a rare appearance. And we need to make it a more often appearance. But anyway, gentlemen, welcome back to In the Dugout.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Tyler Rowley. Well, Tyler Rowley is the president of Servants of Christ for Life. He's a pro-life millennial activist. He's an author. He's a father. He's our show's cultural shaman, if you may, on cultural issues, including all things Catholic. Larry the Liberty Guy, many of you have often heard about, but seldom seen. He's the behind the scenes guy in this show. And Larry, let's start with you because you're also a part-time journalist. You've written some articles for the Ocean State Current. I'm showing one before we get into the current drag queen issue. 2 years ago, you wrote about this on the Ocean State Current about something that was going on in Fall River. Just quickly remind everybody what happened there.
Absolutely. This is a continuing story that we cover on the Current, oceanstatecurrent.com. There was a protest 2 years ago in front of the cathedral when the bishop said don't bring your kids to Pride, that it's inappropriate for children. And this guy, and there was a really radical protest. There was someone dressed up as a dead nun. There was all kinds of communist symbols on the people that were there. It was, you know, it was really offensive as somebody who believes in freedom and as a Catholic. And this, one of the people that was a leader of this protest goes by the drag queen named Naomi Chomsky, performed at the Fall River Library. So those, just what we have on the screen right now, shows off.
But also, this guy is wearing this guy's also wearing Marxist t-shirts at other rallies, right? So this is a clear Marxist thing, right? Now, before we get to the current issue at hand, let me bring Tyler in. So Tyler, you've been commenting a lot on these drag queen story hours that everybody thinks are so cute and innocent. Before we get into the West Warwick one, just generally, what do you know about this movement to indoctrinate our kids with this drag queen stuff and about just the whole issue?
Well, at its core, it's a continuation of the deliberate disruption of the moral consensus of our society. That's at its core. You'll see Planned Parenthood backing this. You'll see all the other sort of morally decaying groups backing things like this. And at its core, you know, there's a guy named Andrew. He's an adult male. He's going to dress up
nationally at its core in this region.
National. Yeah, dragqueensstoryhour.org is an official, well-funded organization. I mean, this is part of the pride, the sodomy, LGBTQ, you know, moral depravity, change the sexual ethic movement. So yeah, this is just a continuation of what's happening in West Warwick. They brought that to West Warwick. They may bring this to other towns in Rhode Island. Sometimes it might fly under the radar, but luckily we caught it this time. So, you know, an adult male, a guy named Andrew, you know, he'll dress up as a, I guess you could say a woman, but it's even offensive to say that to women because it's sort of this hyper feminized, hyper sexualized character of a woman. Any true feminist should be outraged as well that this is the way we portray women to little kids. But he'll go into a publicly funded library and he'll read about, you know, probably, you know, some sort of rainbow book about why it's okay to have, you know, boys can have sex with other boys, and he'll sort of present himself as this fun cross-dressing drag queen.
Let's get into the details in a little bit, but yeah. Suffice it to say for now that what happened in Fall River a couple of years ago, what's happening or about to happen in West Warwick soon, is part of a nationally orchestrated movement, is what you're saying.
Yes, dragqueensstoryhour.org. You can go there, and this person is this is all connected to that.
All right, and these people in Fall River and Warwick are, you think, part of that organization?
I'm not familiar with the Fall River side of it, but West Warwick, yes.
West Warwick. All right, Larry. So right now, West Warwick, you wrote an article last week, and West Warwick is earlier this week actually, and you wrote on what's going on in West Warwick.
Absolutely. There's two. We have two articles up on the current. So first up, in the first article, we do an investigative report of who these drag queens are. We do an analysis of their social media. And one of the things that I found absolutely shocking when we went through their social media is the anti-Catholic bigotry that one of them is displaying.
The anti-Catholic bigotry?
Absolutely. So there's things that are extremely offensive to Catholics. One of them has a video set up as he is dressed as the Virgin Mary and he's cradling a sex toy as if it was the baby Jesus. It's extremely offensive things that
a phallic sex toy.
Yes. So these are very, very offensive things to Catholics. And so they've invited these two performers to come in and read to children. It's coming up at the end of the month. There has been a trustee meeting of the library board, and they heard testimony. It was unanimously against the Drag Queen Story Hour, and that was on.
What ages are they targeting in these story hours?
0 to 6. It's explicit on the website.
0 to 6. Phallic symbols, homosexual sex being promoted, and these interesting looking people, to say the least. Tyler, your objection to this, is it largely based on principle that just a drag queen should be presenting, or is it more content based? Some of the Marxist origins we know that come from, and all some of these filthy imagery and discussions they have, or is it both?
Okay, so let's talk about 0 to 6-year-olds. You know, a 2-month-old, a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, maybe even a 3-year-old. This will fly right over their head.
Right.
I have a 5-year-old. Okay, if I brought my 5-year-old to this, they would ask me a million questions afterward. Dad, what's a drag queen? Oh, a drag queen. So what's a drag queen? Drag queen is a man who dresses up like a woman. So okay, so right there, I've told him that is an image. That's a good, healthy image of a woman, which it's not. It's a first, and I've also told him that men dressing up as women is healthy. Men dressing up as women has always been considered by every culture to be a perversion, some sort of mental illness or perversion that this person is engaging in for whatever psychological reason.
And let me say here, that's a great point. You know, perversion is not necessarily evil. Perverse just means out of the ordinary. That's all it really means. If you look at, now you might mean it with the more subjective terminology, but being perverse is not necessarily a dirty word. In this case, you might think it's a dirty, perverse action, but all right, keep going. I just wanted to clarify that.
I do mean it as there is a connotation here that it's wrong, that a perversion is wrong.
Okay.
And that it's also a highly sexualized act. Okay, so my 5-year-old is getting the message. Okay, so this is sort of normal. If I want to dress up as a girl, and that's what a woman is supposed to look like. And now we live in a culture where 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 6-year-olds go to their mom and dad and they say, you know what, I kind of feel like I'm supposed to be a girl. And they say, oh, and even if they object now, the government is coming in and giving this kid cross-sex hormone blockers to quote unquote change them into another gender, which is physically impossible. This is confusion, the epitome of sexual confusion for a kid. Let's just stop here and think for a second.
Yep.
Why in the hell does a 6-year-old or a 5-year-old even need to wrestle and grapple with these types of issues? If you want to talk, if
and
you
like
want to read,
you said, think of the spot it puts parents in, right? To have to try to respond to these questions that no
right,
kid
and
should
this
be
is
asking.
and this is always cloaked with, well, we're trying to get the message across that everyone's different and not to bully people. Then read an anti-bullying book that doesn't have sexual connotations, that the person that the kids are looking up to isn't cross-dressing and calling himself a drag queen, right, and have this sort of weird sexual caricature of a woman in front of them. I mean, the fact that we even have to sort of explain why this is so weird and confusing, yep, for a kid, this is their strategy to sort of change the sexual ethic and change the moral.
All right, let's come back to that. Let's come back to that in a second. Larry, if you have something to add there, I got a question for you next, but do you have something you want to quickly add there?
If we're going to come back to critical race theory in a second, Sten.
Yeah, we are. Okay. All right, so let's talk about West Warwick. You broke the first story last week. You did a follow-up story this week. Has this happened yet, or when is it supposed to happen?
End of the month, June 26th, I believe, is the date that's going to happen. It's a private event that's going to be held during the day.
Held where?
At the West Warwick Library, off regular hours.
And that's a public library, city-sponsored, municipal-run library.
Correct.
So the town of West Warwick, the city council has approved this? Or the town council?
The city council says they want to keep their hands off it. The board of trustees say they don't have control over library programming. It's the director that they're saying is responsible for that. Now, I personally don't buy that. I think that
who's the director?
I don't know. Colin.
We need to find out that information. All right, now
Colin McCullough
yeah, of the West Warwick director. All right,
head librarian. The library committee and the town council are passing the buck to each other. And the town council is passing it to the library committee. The library committee is passing it to the head librarian. Everybody sort of says, I don't have any control over this. Colin McCullough makes the argument that this isn't going to be an adult event. Everyone keeps saying this is going to be an adult event. No one's saying that. We know Andrew's not going to come in naked like he normally does, but he is going to. But and if it's going to be so child friendly, let's see a picture of what he is going to dress
so
like.
wait a minute. So this, you're
read.
saying this national guy Andrew is the one who's coming to Rhode Island to do this? This is not a local person?
Oh no, Andrew. No, Andrew's a local guy, right, Larry?
Yeah, based out of Massachusetts. Ninny Nothing is the character that
is that Andrew's character?
I believe his name is Johnny, but yeah.
All right, so it's not Andrew himself who's going to be there. Yeah. All right. Larry, do you get there was a meeting Monday night, a trustee meeting of the library, I assume, and you mentioned in your article that over 20 people came. Do you get then it was unanimous again? Do you get the sense that anything could change, or are the forces of evil dug in on this?
Yeah, so I mean, not everyone spoke at the meeting. Everyone who did speak was unanimous in their comments against this. They are certainly digging in. As we said, they're trying to pass the buck. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be an uphill battle to get somebody to move on this, but public pressure works. So these events have been canceled in the past. So in Bristol, it was canceled, then uncanceled. So there was back and forth on that. It's possible. It would be difficult, but I think that it's worth parents standing up.
But more importantly, if citizens like us remain quiet, this certainly could be coming to a library near you, unless we send a message. Even if this thing happens, we've got to send a message. All right, last question for you both is on the critical race theory. Now, my commentary last week, and I think as any informed people know, that critical race theory is an extension of critical theory that pitted the wealthy or the bourgeoisie against the proletariat, the people. Critical race theory just substitutes race instead of wealth into it. But part of this critical race theory in our country is also not just race-based, but it's sexual preference-based. And they're trying to make it seem like society discriminates not only against people because of the race, but people because of their sexual preference. And they try to jam their agenda, make us feel guilty. White guilt, I don't know if the equivalent would be straight guilt, I guess. They're trying to make straights feel guilty. Tyler, do you agree with my premise?
I do. I don't know exactly the exact tactics of these sort of Marxist ideas. But a point that I'll make about that is I want everyone to think about the Me Too movement, right? That happened, a couple of years ago, the Me Too movement. What was the Me Too movement? It was a bunch of women coming out and banding together and sort of saying they're fed up with the sexual abuse that men are perpetrating onto women. Okay. And this was a big moment, I thought, for the Catholic Church. And I thought we missed it big time. This was our moment to say, see, I told you so, right? Everything we've been talking about for the past 50 years with the sexual revolution, everything from divorce to strip clubs to pornography to cohabitation to abortion to contraception, all of this we were saying, and Pope Paul VI talked about this in his encyclical Humani Vitae. All of this is going to culminate in men treating women very badly, abusing them as sexual objects. And all of a sudden, it was like Hollywood figured this out. And we had this big cultural Me Too movement led by pop culture because it actually got that bad. And I just want to say that we're doing the same thing to children right now. Our culture's obsession with sexualizing children is just weird. It's just weird. And children are not going to have the platform of Hollywood actresses in 10, 20 years when this has gotten so insanely bad. And it's on that way. So good men and good women, I don't care if you're Catholic or not at this point, because we have to protect children at this point. This is out of control. Children don't deserve to be confronted with this weirdness, with these perversions, with these topics. They're teaching anal sex and oral sex in first grade now in some communities. This is insane. So many studies show that when you introduce kids to pornography, when you abuse them sexually, when you introduce them to these sexual topics that they're not ready for, it has long-term ramifications. And every culture before ours has known to guard the purity of their women and their children, to guard them against really what is the force of the male sexual ethic, right? We guard them against that because our sexual ethic can run, the male sexual ethic can run out of control sometimes. And so we guard women and children against that. But no, it's the opposite. We're actually taking an adult male, we're dressing him up like a sexual female, we're sticking him into a room with a bunch of kids, and he's going to teach them. I mean, the insanity is just off the charts. So
it's just a, I believe it's just a compulsive, irrational, perverted emotion to be part of the madding crowd, to be part of the politically correct woke club that leads this. All right, Larry Gillheeney, last word goes to you. Critical race theory, and are you aware of any parents groups? There's a lot of parents groups popping up all over the state. Are you aware of any parents groups fighting against this? Two-part question to you, and we'll close out the segment.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is insane, but it's also brilliant, the strategic brilliance of the left to turn different parts of society against each other. Americans are an aspirational people. They don't hate the wealthy. And when Marxism, the Soviet Union fell,
and we don't hate LGBTQ.
We don't hate LGBTQ people.
We just don't want them pushing their stuff on our kids, right?
Right, absolutely. So when the Soviet Union fell, academics said we can't try to do class structure as a way of dividing society. We have to look to other things. So they look to race, they look to sex, and it's the same trick. They're trying to divide society to weaken us, and that's strategically brilliant, which is why we have to come together to fight back against this.
What can parents do, and what are you aware of any parents groups fighting?
Yeah, there are parents groups. Servants of Graceful Life is made up of parents. There's other parents groups out there. David Coyne's group is speaking out against this. There's certainly parishes and dioceses across West Warwick that are organizing and saying that they don't want this. There's a petition going that's happening. Go to the Catholic churches there to find that, but mostly what we need people to do is contact the school committee, not the school committee, the town council, the West Warwick Town Council. Their information is very easy to find. It's on oceanstatecurrent.com. Call them up, say you don't want this to happen.
Where on oceanstatecurrent.com?
Tyler has a fantastic piece that he wrote up. It's at the bottom of that.
And is that on the homepage, on the front page?
Homepage.
All right. All right, Tyler Rowley, I encourage everyone to read Larry's piece, read Tyler's piece. Tyler, last quick thought.
Yeah, just quick thing about what parents can do. So Larry's right. Contact West Warwick Town Council people, and then Father Nick Fleming from St. John and James has been awesome on this. So he can kind of spearhead the West Warwick sort of Catholic effort. He has 150 signatures on a petition. So Father Fleming, St. John and James has been strong, and he's been great on this. So if you want to call over there in other parishes
well, I do need to mention that we invited Father Fleming to be on the show, but he declined. We're disappointed in that. Maybe next time, but I'm glad to hear that he's at least leading under the radar revolt against this. Gentlemen, thank you. I don't know if anyone's planning to attend the meeting to see what actually goes on there, or if we have anyone who's planning to go, but I'd love to hear what actually happens if it does happen. And we'll look for a follow-up report. Larry Gillheeney, Tyler Rowley, thanks for being on In the Dugout.
Thanks, Mike. See you later.
So this local political woke hysteria, is infecting so many towns across the country and in Rhode Island. And we've had, and Barrington is no exception to the rule. I mean, this is a social contagion. Instead of government that's here to serve all of the people, we now have government that is almost exclusively there to try to serve just certain special interest group segments of the people. And perhaps no town is doing a worse job at representing all the people than the town of Barrington. So joining us again today to discuss yet another Barrington flag controversy is Paul Dukinos. Paul, welcome back to In the Dugout. I see you're wearing a cap and shirt today. We love you. Got the Red Sox shirt, and what's your cap?
Oh, it's just a Desert Storm veteran.
All right. Thank you again for your service. And you are the director of what is it? The Barrington Veterans. Give me the proper name again.
Yeah, the Barrington's United the Barrington United Veterans Council and the Barrington United Veterans Coalition. We just recently stood up an advocacy group to kind of support the council itself, to go where the council can't. And that our first action as the coalition was to host the Flag Day First Amendment rally and Respect the Flag rally, which we had Monday.
Yeah, now Monday was Flag Day across America. In today's leftist world, it went largely unnoticed, I fear. Your group has been involved in flag issues. Just as a quick background, there's a Veterans Memorial that is supposedly was put up near Barrington Town Hall in conjunction with your group, yet your group has no control over the political messaging that is being flown on that flag. And in your view, any political messaging is sort of a desecration of the American flag, which really should be the only message sent. We've talked to you before about this: respect the flag, keep politics off the flagpole. That was in conjunction with a Black Lives Matter flag that was flown against the wishes of the veterans and against the wishes of many Barrington people from September to March. Did I get anything on that wrong?
No, you got it. This all started about a year ago, a little over a year ago, during the first Pride Month celebration, when Barrington decided to fly the Pride flag over our memorial. At that time, we wrote and petitioned the town council to say, hey, this is a bad idea. It creates a slippery slope. Other groups will want their flags flown as well. And that's exactly what happened in September when they kowtowed and decided to virtue signal to the Black Lives militant movement. And then, of course, that led us to get even more engaged and to address this and bring this topic up during the town council meetings, where we had over 50% of the people attending that meeting in February to get it to come down. And unfortunately, it did not happen. They kept it through till March and actually passed an ordinance to allow additional, opportunities for other flags to be flown.
And this month it's the rainbow flag because it is Gay Pride Month. Is that the
right? That one of the things is
that flag is flying right now. The rainbow flag has been up since June 1st.
Right.
On the at the Veterans Memorial without your approval, correct?
Right. Yeah, we were never consulted. The town hall flag is co-located with our Veterans Memorial. They were brought together back in the day when the council and when the two councils worked together and supported each other, and it seemed like a no-brainer at that time. The cost savings move, put the flag at the same location. Unfortunately, we didn't foresee this happening. We have nothing against, we're for equal opportunities for everybody, regardless of race or gender or sexual orientation. And our issue is that, put up another flagpole, put it somewhere else. And,
right,
and
a veterans memorial is a veterans memorial, right?
Right. And there's no place that you should not be flying anything unofficial underneath the American flag. It's bad flag etiquette. It's advertising. It's politicizing. Ironically, the town manager in his interview with the press based on our rally.
Who was that?
James Cunha. He said that the council and him, that they don't fly any political banners, but I don't know how you could say that. The banners are clearly political, and as soon as you put anything up there underneath the American flag, it instantly becomes a political message. So, we're keeping the pressure on. This is going on for over a year now. The only thing the town council has done is codified and created an ordinance that allows them to do this under the guise of government speech. Unfortunately, this government speech has not been extended to other groups and organizations within our town. So once they pass that ordinance, even though we did not want that ordinance.
We're gonna get into the rally.
Okay.
I think it might be in your, there's an echo. Can you turn down the volume on your computer a little bit? Because it sounds like it's echoing through your computer. But as I do that, I'm going to share a flyer that your group put out. Barrington United Veterans Coalition, you held a rally on Monday evening, Flag Day, to honor the flag, A, of course, the American flag, but also B, to kind of protest the politicization, boy, I've got tongue twisted today, of the politics involved with the Veterans Barrington Memorial flagpole. Tell us about the rally, how many people attended, and what was the goal of the rally?
Yeah, the goal of the rally was just to continue the pressure on the council to keep raising awareness, let the townspeople know what's going on, because many folks may not have known that this is even an issue going on in the town. And also to give an opportunity for those individuals and groups that had requested flags to be flown to come out and join us and carry their flags, which were denied. And some of those, if you look at the flyer, some of those are the flags that are depicted around the center of some of the things that were denied to be flown. So we had over 50 folks there, despite the weather. It was successful. We had some words said by myself, about a 15-minute speech, kind of bringing it all together. And then people were assembled and let our voices be heard. You know, you can just look at some of the contentious flags there that, you know, stop anti-Semitism. I don't know why the town council wouldn't bring that up for a vote. 22 a day, Veterans Lives Matter. I mean, that was to bring awareness to veterans.
So these are all the other flags that were requested to be flown. If you're going to start politicizing things, let us put some of our less controversial flags up there. But all these flags that we're looking at here were denied.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, some of them are like in the top left corner, every Black Life Matters was what we would have liked to see. If you're going to fly a Black Lives Matter flag, that's an organization that doesn't want to disrupt the nuclear family, that doesn't want to get rid of capitalism, that isn't anti-American, that supports pro-life decisions for the Black community. So that would have been a flag that we would have had them, had been engaged. Say this would have been a more appropriate flag to be flown rather than one with a lot of baggage like the BLM flag. But yeah, the Italian flag, it was an Italian Heritage Month. There was a request for the Gadsden flag.
And even our flag was requested.
Right, there you go. Freedom.
Well, that's not really our flag, it's our motto.
Right, right.
We took our identity out of it, our center's identity. But I mean, who could argue with freedom and prosperity? But that didn't make it either, right?
No, doesn't.
All right.
I want that for everyone.
Last question for you, Paul. First of all, let me just say, if you're watching and you're aware of flags being flown against the will of the people at either a memorial or a town hall, and you don't think it's representing all, send us a note and a picture at info@rifreedom.org, and we'll give you credit and we'll put it up there when we talk about this issue next. Paul, obviously Barrington's not the only place. We don't know how many places. That's why we put out the request. But what is your message to veterans, to parents, to any citizen who's concerned about the over politicization of their flagpoles on town property?
Yeah, I think what it is, you know, in this divisive world that we live in right now, the one thing that brings us all together as a rallying cry is that we're all Americans and that we should all honor the one flag that represents all of us, and that's the United States of America. And it should be flown.
It used to unify all of us.
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, I've seen some people get triggered about them, seeing them on the back of pickup trucks. But yeah, but the flag itself, it shouldn't be diluted with sub messages, patronizing certain groups and distracting. And when you go down that road, it's like you're balkanizing our country into little fiefdoms and little groups and little subsegments.
That's the goal.
And we should be bringing them all together. So, you know, leave the American flag alone. Let it fly unencumbered, free from all those distractions. And one of the things is that the town council does have a meeting coming in July where they're supposedly going to redress this and look at coming up with the next set of virtue flags that they would like to fly going into the next year. So I'd encourage, you know, the citizens of Barrington to come out to that meeting, have their voices, and stop the insanity, and let's go back to just flying the American flag and respecting the American flag.
Agreed, Paul. And I would say that virtue is not one-sided, left or right. And if you're going to do virtue signaling, represent all of us. Paul Dukinos, Barrington United Veterans Coalition. Thanks again for updating us on the Barrington flag controversies. I'm sure there'll be more, and I'm sure we'll have you back again soon.
Good day. All right, thank you.
All right, Paul.
Take care.
So once again, folks, you're hearing discussions and perspectives that you're not going to see on any other major news outlet in this state. We dig into issues that are important to you. And the issue here, as you've seen, I mean, with so many of our shows, what we talked about today, what we talked about yesterday, what we talked about so often, is the left's attempt, literally, I mean, literally, this is not figuratively, literally want to upend and change the way we live our lives. We have had a successful culture in this country. Yes, of course, we've had our black marks and checkered histories here or there, significant ones at that. But this great American culture has led to the greatest country in the history of the world. And the left wants to destroy that culture in so many ways. You heard two of them today with our guests. It's going to continue. They're not going to let up. We must rise to the challenge. We will not shirk from our responsibilities to raise awareness about these issues, but ultimately it will be up to you to rally support in your communities. And because it's community-based, so much of this, you actually can win victories in the local level. Winning statewide victory is very hard. The deck is stacked enormously against us. It's a much more level playing field at the community level, at the local level. That's why it's important you rally people and get involved. Again, any information, info@rifreedom.org. If you have information on any of this cultural rot that's going on in your community. Just a reminder, tomorrow, Dr. Andrew Boston, again, they're trying to raise the fear again with the new variant, and there's new evidence of a vaccine causing problems in young males, heart problems. We'll discuss all of that with Dr. Andrew Boston tomorrow on In the Dugout. Thanks for joining us today. See you next game.